Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Saturday morning to you all. I hope you guys are waking up and feeling good out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day and a great beginning to your new weekend out there so far. We got a lot to cover in this morning's video, and the first thing we'll talk about is severe weather over the next couple days. We'll speak on tomorrow's severe weather threat. We'll speak on Monday's severe weather threat, and we'll talk about all the details that we have for each day. We'll have a segment for today's severe weather threat also across the plains, so we'll speak on that. And then we'll talk about the winter weather side of this storm system that's evolving right now, but the meat of the winter storm really gets going over the next 24 hours where we can have a significant ice storm across areas of the upper Midwest, the interior Northeast, and heavy wet snow also. So if you live in those areas, definitely switch to that portion of the video if you don't want to hear about severe weather. And then we'll go back to talking about severe weather because next week looks incredibly active also. In fact, they already have a level 3 out of 5 risk of severe weather for next Wednesday, a big time enhanced risk. In fact, next week's severe weather threat could be more significant than what we're going to deal with for tomorrow, but we don't want to say anything for sure. But we'll speak on all that. A lot of information to go over. We're not going to be able to cover today's forecast. We'll talk a lot about today's forecast just in this video, but not going to have a section off version like we normally do. But we're going to cover a lot. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. If anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put it in the comments below. I would appreciate some prayers, unspoken prayer requests, just some things that not a big deal at all, just dealing with some anxiety because of it, but definitely asking for an unspoken prayer request for myself for this morning. So let's get rocking and rolling this morning. So a lot to cover. This is tomorrow's severe weather outlook. There has been no upgrade to a moderate risk as of right now. That could change later today into tomorrow. But as of now, still a massive enhanced risk for tomorrow morning into Monday morning. So let's speak on it. Enhanced risk in the orange, level 3 out of 5. Slight risk in the yellow, level 2 out of 5. The dark green is a marginal risk, level 1 out of 5. So who's included in this enhanced risk? Fort Wayne, Indiana, Indianapolis, down to Evansville. We got Cincinnati, Dayton, Ohio. We got Louisville, Kentucky, down to Lexington, Bowling Green, Paducah, all of central and eastern Kentucky, all of central and southern Illinois, all of portions of central Missouri and southeast Missouri, including St. Louis, down to Poplar Bluff, the entire Boot Heel, and then just about all of Arkansas except western Arkansas, like Fayetteville, Bentonville, Fort Smith, but Little Rock, Jonesboro, Pine Bluff, El Dorado, Hot Springs, you guys all included in the enhanced risk. This goes all the way down to the far northern sections of Louisiana, like the northern parishes. You guys have enhanced risk. The northern half of Mississippi in enhanced risk, Greenwood, Columbus, Tupelo, Oxford, and then sections of northwest Alabama. This does include Florence, not quite to Huntsville, but you could easily be added in this in later outlooks per the Storm Prediction Center. The slight risk extends, guys, all the way up through Bay City, Grand Rapids, Michigan, Detroit, Toledo, Cleveland, the rest of Ohio, back to Pittsburgh, Erie, almost all the way over to, well, it does include Charleston, West Virginia, the entire eastern section of Kentucky, just about, eastern sections of Tennessee, Knoxville, Chattanooga, Dalton, Rome. You know, a whole lot of this hasn't changed from the last couple of videos, but Birmingham, Gadsden, down here to Tuscaloosa, Meridian, Hattiesburg, Jackson, Mississippi, Macomb, down here to Alexandria, Shreveport, back to Dallas, just about to Dallas, and all of the eastern sections of Texas, the Arklatex area, like Texarkana, enhanced risk, and then the slight risk goes all the way up through Fort Smith, Fayetteville, eastern sections of Oklahoma, through Springfield, Columbia, Missouri, all the way up through Quincy, all the way up through Chicago, Galesburg, Davenport, slight risk, level 2 out of 5. All right, we're not going to do the same thing for the marginal risk. That's probably just a little bit too much overkill there. But if you live in the dark green, there is a risk of severe weather. Now, let's section this off now. All right, so if you live in this yellow area, this is where you have a 10% risk of tornadoes in the yellow area. But if you live in the yellow area and also the black outlined area with the black dashes going in between, which is just about the entire yellow area, you also have a 10% risk of strong tornadoes. So there's, what it says right here, 10% risk, significant tornado. Well, it says 10% significant tornado risk, 10% tornado risk. So basically it's what we call a hatched risk of strong tornadoes. And what the Storm Prediction Center considers a significant tornado is an EF2 or stronger. So, this includes Louisville, higher populated areas, Louisville up to Columbus, Bloomington, Evansville, all the way, the entire central and eastern sections of Kentucky, all of southern Illinois, southern half of Indiana, back here to the Boot Heel, Missouri, down to Nashville, Memphis, Jonesboro. Hopefully you can see these town names pretty well. I'll kind of go through it really slow. Florence, northern half of Mississippi, the entire eastern areas of Arkansas, southeastern Missouri. Okay, hopefully you can see your town names on this map. I'm going to do things in the future to try to make these town names look a little bit more visible on the map here. But do not ignore the brown area. So we have a 5% risk of a tornado. St. Louis up to Indianapolis, up to Fort Wayne, Cincinnati, Dayton, down to Cookeville, Huntsville, all the way down to middle sections of Mississippi, the northern parishes of Louisiana. This includes Hot Springs, Little Rock. You guys have a 5% risk. St. Louis, I think I already said that. 5% risk of a tornado in the brown area within 25 miles in a given location. There's a 2% risk in the green area. Now, what about winds? Large area has a risk of significant wind. So if you live here in the red area, that's where you have a 30% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. But in the red area with the black outline region going in between it, that's a 30% risk of winds, but also a 10% risk of significant winds, which is considered 70, 80 mile per hour winds or higher. So a huge area. Basically every town community that I said was in the enhanced risk area has this risk of winds. Not everybody has the risk of significant winds. So if you go down here to this region, it doesn't have the black outline area in it. That's where you just have a 30% risk of winds exceeding that 55 to 60 mile per hour or plus mark. Okay, but if you live in this entire red area, pretty high chance to see at least a risk of strong winds. So if you live in the yellow area, 15% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. Detroit, Pittsburgh, Columbus. You guys included in this, Chicago, over to Columbia, Missouri, Chattanooga, Knoxville, down to Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, Jackson, Meridian, Hattiesburg. But big cities like Little Rock, Memphis, Nashville, St. Louis, Cincinnati, Lexington, Indianapolis, Dayton, all the way up to Fort Wayne. You guys, not only do you have that 30% risk of winds exceeding that 55 to 60 mile per hour mark, but you also have that 10% risk of winds exceeding Category 1 hurricane force winds, 75, 80 mile per hour winds. So what about the hail risk with this? There's a pretty big risk of large hail also. Do it again. If you live in the red area without the black outline, I can't talk. Without the black outline region over your region, you can't talk. All you can do is laugh sometimes, guys. But if you don't live in the black outline region area with the black dashes going in between it, you don't have a risk of significant hail. But if you kind of just live in the area in the red where it's just a 30% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. Now, if you live in that red, like I said, with that black outline region going in between it, there's a 30% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger, but also a 10% risk of significant hail. That's 2 inch in diameter or larger. That includes many areas that I mentioned, like the bigger cities, the higher populated areas of Memphis, Little Rock, Nashville, Louisville, Evansville, Indianapolis, all the way to St. Louis, a risk of very large hail in this region. Okay, so we make it larger. If you live in the yellow area, there's just a 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. That includes, Chicago, Detroit, over to Cleveland, Columbus, down to Birmingham, Knoxville, Alexandria, Louisiana, Hattiesburg, all the way back over to Dallas. Now, I will mention there is a section of the yellow area that also has that risk of significant hail. So 15% risk of hail, 1 inch, 10% risk of hail exceeding 2 inch in diameter or larger. So I know it's a lot to take in, but I'd like to try to get as detailed with this as possible. And the larger of an area that this covers, the longer it takes for me to get through it, right? So sorry for the twisting of words and messing up there, but large area, risk of severe weather. Now, if we're breaking it down as far as what the latest HRRR model run shows. So this is starting off tomorrow morning. I'll try to section out states tomorrow in tomorrow morning's video. We're going to talk about more of a broad area, and I'll try to mention time frames as we go. So this is tomorrow morning. We're already waking up to a cluster of storms from today's severe weather that we'll cover here in a second. So this is kind of the leftovers that we're waking up to in Missouri, areas of western Illinois. So we could be waking up to some strong storms already in this region. Scattered convection across Ohio, Kentucky, West Virginia, even some down Alabama, Georgia. I don't think that'll be severe, but we'll have to watch for it. Now we take it to about, this is getting closer to midday. We're getting some maybe strong to severe thunderstorms rumbling through areas of Illinois here, getting into the western counties of Indiana. We're getting scattered downpours and storms down here in Alabama and Georgia. I don't think these will pack much of a punch, but they could reach strong to severe limits. I just think the main ingredients are to your west. But we start to get into, say, tomorrow around 3, 4, 5 o'clock. We got multiple clusters of storms ongoing. You got storms up here in Illinois, kind of southeastern, eastern Illinois. We got storms going through Indiana, starting to move into Ohio. You see all these storms, and I mean, the global models picked up on this well, how you're just going to have clusters of storms. You even got storms down here in Alabama that could be packing some damaging winds. Can't rule out a tornado risk. So there's just a large area. But I want you to watch down there to the south. Here it has some storms starting to get going. But I want you to focus in on here really quick with me. So this region, kind of right into here. These storms will be working with better kinematics, better wind flow in the atmosphere, better spin in the atmosphere to produce a tornado. So I'll stop it here. It's around 4, 5, 6 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. I am concerned about a more elevated tornado risk across Illinois, Indiana, Missouri, down in Kentucky. You see these storms. We're getting really close to like Lexington, their Cincinnati, Louisville area up to Indianapolis. These storms are concerning. You got it looks like some strong storms kind of surging through northern Ohio. And to keep this going here, and then boom, you get an eruption of supercells that develop back here in southeastern Missouri around 6, 7, 8 o'clock. And you see how you have this little extended thing right here. This is where this particular run is trying to pick up on a rotating updraft, but these could be producing tornadoes from down here in Missouri down here in Arkansas, heck, even down into southeastern Oklahoma, into northeastern Texas, all the way up through Missouri, through southern Illinois and Indiana. These storms could be producing a tornado, damaging winds, large hail. And then you continue to go, and they start to cluster up as the sun begins to set tomorrow night, and we could just have a powerful kind of cluster of storms rumbling through the Boot Hill, Missouri, going through southern sections of Illinois, Indiana. You could have multiple clusters of storms through this area throughout tomorrow, midday, all the way through the late night hours. Look at this line of storms moving through Ohio. And I know I keep bouncing back and forth, but there's a lot going on. And you keep this going, and it looks like by the time you get to about the middle of the night, you kind of got two things ongoing. You got this area of storms going up through the Ohio Valley. We got some clusters of storms in northern Georgia, the upstate of South Carolina, western North Carolina. These could be severe as the ingredients are pushing east as the system begins to push east. And this could be a nasty line of storms developing down to the south. And in fact, we'll go on and, let's see. Yeah, this is what we got. We'll go on and jump down here, and we'll kind of speed up here in time. And I do want to mention, midday, early afternoon, a lot of storm activity in Alabama, Georgia, and even South Carolina. Look at Florida. A lot of storms tomorrow in Florida. Could be a stormy afternoon, evening, and just clusters of storms everywhere. I think the main severe weather day is probably Monday, but we're going to have storms throughout the southeast tomorrow also. And then we start to get into, say, late tomorrow night. So this is probably after the sunset. You see this cluster of storms kind of developing back here in Arkansas, northern Louisiana. They're kind of coming out of Texas. And these storms could certainly be producing all hazards. Now we're starting to lose some steam. We're losing the daylight, the prime heating of the day. And the HRRR model only goes out to about midnight tomorrow night, 1 a.m., kind of early Monday morning. But we have this cluster of storms potentially producing all hazards going over the Mississippi River, starting to enter Mississippi. And we got ongoing strong to severe storms still in northern Georgia and the western Carolinas. So a lot to watch. There's multiple clusters kind of out there that you kind of have to focus a lot on. So I think tomorrow when we discuss this and break the system down one last time, we'll probably section off states for you guys. And of course, that video is going to be a very long one. But yeah, big day of severe weather. And listen, the ingredients are coming together. We're not going to spend as long on this as we have been over the last few videos. But you look at dew points, thermodynamics, your surface moisture, how humid it is outside. Dew points in the 60s plus support severe weather. So we're getting into tomorrow morning. And if anytime in the video I've mentioned that this severe weather's today, because I might have said tonight when I meant to say tomorrow night, I do apologize. Might have to go back and watch the video to see if I did that any. But this is for tomorrow until tomorrow night severe weather threat. But a lot of moisture surging up through this region. Dew points in the 60s go all the way up into Michigan. So plenty of ripe, moist air. Anybody that's in the 60s, the atmosphere is juiced up, ready to produce and ready to feed these storms as far as moist air. So no point in harping on that very long. Tons of moist air. In response, you have high CAPE levels, storm fuel. So you build it all the way to about the early middle portion of tomorrow afternoon. Your CAPE values on the latest HRRR model spiked to over 3,000 joules per kilogram in spots in areas of Missouri, Illinois, northern Arkansas. So this is where your supercells can erupt, and in fact they do. You see how these little splotches kind of get taken out, these colors? That's where storms literally form and eat up all the ingredients in the atmosphere. So tons of fuel, and this builds into kind of the late evening hours, the overnight hours, where we just have tons of storm fuel just sitting down here ready to be tapped into. And you don't even need 2,000 joules per kilogram of CAPE to produce storms. I mean, this little 900 to 1,000 joules per kilogram up here in the Ohio Valley and stuff like that will produce and get the job done. So plenty of storm fuel, and then you look at the forcing mechanism in the atmosphere to get these storms going, and there's a lot of it. So you got this flow with this jet extension moving over the Midwest into the Ohio Valley, the mid and deep south. 50 knots on average of mid-level, upper-level flow rumbling through this area out the west, southwest. And this is plenty of push in the atmosphere, in the upper levels of the atmosphere, to get these storms going, get a flowing motion with these storms. And of course, you have to watch for the individual low-level jet impulse of energy also. And I'll kind of look at that really quick. We'll let it load. So where is your best low-level flow? Out the south. And if you're looking through this region, you got to watch out for a more elevated tornado threat where you have this area in purple. So this is what the flow is going in the lower levels of the atmosphere, 850 millibars, 4,000 to 6,000 feet up, 40, 50 knots going right up through this region. So your better tornado threat could be positioned in this. There could be some kind of mismatching of ingredients of severe weather. We hope there is. So the tornado threat isn't as high, but there is a large, as we've already spoke on, 10% risk of a strong tornado. So tomorrow's severe weather threat, we have a slight risk. Now, if you read the discussion, it does mention they might upgrade it to an enhanced risk. But as of now, slight risk does extend all the way up to central New York, through a good chunk of PA, a good section of New Jersey, all of Maryland, all of Delaware, all of Virginia, most of West Virginia, includes all of the Carolinas, all of eastern Tennessee, all of Georgia, except far southeast Georgia, and the panhandle of Florida, good chunk of Alabama, and then all of southern Mississippi and southeastern Louisiana. This is where we have, all we know right now is we have a 15% risk of any severe weather. So if I had to guess what they're going to change it to is they'll probably say there's a 15% risk of damaging winds all the way up here to New York, and there'll probably be a large 5% risk of a tornado somewhere inside of this. If I had to say, let's see, I would say there's a 5% risk of a tornado right here in this region right here. And that might be way too large. It could be. But there could be a 10% risk of a tornado where there's higher CAPE levels, like maybe down into here. But that's that's probably me overdoing it. I'm just trying to take a shot here and see what we're working with. But this is a large area. I think that this will be your bigger severe weather threat that we've seen this season across this region. And we're not in short range model, guys, so all we can do is show you these splotches of colors, right? The greens, the reds, the yellows, and orange. So we'll start off Monday morning. I think we'll already have clusters of storms kind of rumbling through this region, especially in the southern section of this area that I just drew here. We'll have strong to severe storms going through Alabama, Mississippi, getting into Georgia. Okay, so we keep this going. And then by the time we get into Monday afternoon, these storms will be greeting everybody across the eastern states of the eastern seaboard. And I know it just looks like I said, clusters of colors, but these could very well be strong to severe storms, especially down here in Virginia Point South, I think, where you could have more of an elevated tornado threat. We'll have to watch. I might be chasing in my neck of the woods here Monday, but these storms will finally clear on off. But if you talk about the ingredients, everything will be there, guys. I mean, this is waking up Monday morning. Dew points tropical down here in the Gulf coastline to the southeast, and we even got dew points into the 60s all the way up into the Delmarva, the Tidewater. And then we're getting into Monday afternoon, and we got these areas, it's showing dew points in the 60s all the way up into Albany, New York. So tons of moisture in the atmosphere in this entire slight risk area. No wonder why you have a slight risk. Tons of moisture. You're going to wake up. It's going to be a humid Monday to start your work week next week across the southeast, mid-Atlantic, down into the Gulf coastline, all the way up into southern New England. Very humid outside. It's going to feel like summer. So tons of moisture in the atmosphere for these storms to work with. In response, you'll have higher Cape levels. So these look like some decently high Cape levels. I know it only shows 900,000 joules per kilogram, but that is enough fuel for these storms to work with all the way up into the mid-Atlantic, and a lot higher Cape levels hugging the Gulf coastline because of the higher moisture. But, there's pockets over 1,000 joules per kilogram like in South Carolina, North Carolina, down to Georgia. I really do think these storms could pack a punch Monday, and I think we'll get an upgrade to an enhanced risk somewhere. And then you got plenty of flow in the atmosphere. I mean, you got this jet rumbling right over the entire eastern seaboard. This will drive a damaging wind threat, enough flow to get these storms going, and with a little veering, directional turning with height, you could certainly get a tornado risk too. So now there is a severe weather risk for today. Kansas City, Wichita, down to Springfield, down to Tulsa, down to Oklahoma City. Slight risk, level 2 out of 5, and the tornado threat is a 2% risk in this area right into here. I'll kind of zoom in. Joplin, wind threat, 15% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour from Kansas City down to Oklahoma City, Tulsa included. And the hail threat. We got a 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger, but down here to Oklahoma City, up to Wichita, and everybody in between, Stillwater. You guys have also a 10% risk of this hail being significant in size, 2 inch in diameter or larger. And I'll show you what the HRRR model shows for today. We take it to about midday, not a whole lot going on in this area. Focus down here. All right, and then boom, storms erupt. They first might get going here in southwestern Iowa and northwestern Missouri, and then look how the storms form in eastern Kansas, back down to Oklahoma, and there's even some strong to severe storms that form as far south as almost the Dallas-Fort Worth area down near the Red River. But this is really late at night. I mean, this is getting close to midnight. These storms are really getting going then. So these storms might not really get going in these areas that I just talked about until maybe after the sun sets tonight. So just be aware of these storms, Joplin, Tulsa, and then they'll greet you guys as we wake up for tomorrow's severe weather threat for areas of the Midwest. So, whew, man, it's a lot to talk about. But we are getting this ongoing winter weather event up here across the upper Midwest, where you have these where your county is in purple. You have ice storm warnings, you have winter storm warnings across the pink colored counties, and then this purple colored county over here, winter weather advisories. So these winter weather advisories actually extend all the way down to Nebraska for right now. Ice storm warnings now have been extended down into northern sections of lower Michigan. But yeah, I know there's some discoloring. There's some winter weather advisories that actually expire here in about a minute. That's funny. So you guys got upgraded to ice storm warnings for a lot of these areas. And no winter weather alerts in Green Bay as of right now, but powerful winter storm moving in It's already, the first wave's kind of already moved in. And the first wave is moving into this area, continues to move through this area right now. We got winter storm warnings up in the pink. Pink counties, Concord, you're included into this. Keene, Mount Pelier, hopefully I said that right. I don't think I did, but we gave it a try. Winter storm warnings up. And then these purple shaded counties, these are just winter weather advisories. So the entire state of Maine, entire state of Vermont, New Hampshire, have some sort of winter weather alert, and then winter weather advisories do extend all the way down to central Mass, the Berkshires and Mass. So, yeah, definitely a late season event. If we break it down, this is what's going on right now. We got the wintry mix. It'll let up later today. You think, oh, it might be over. It might not ever, got a sneeze coming. It might not ever let up for like northern sections of lower Michigan. You might get persistent freezing rain all day, but you'll get a break today in the UP and Michigan. And then you get into the overnight hours, and then a heavier push of winter weather begins to move in. And with this push, significant winter weather accumulations will add up. So, you know, in the pink, this is freezing rain, but in the blue, it's snow. So there's going to be some sort of sharp cutoff between heavy snow and a wintry mix of sleet and freezing rain. But wherever that sets up, it's tough to forecast. But we got just nasty freezing rain we're waking up to all the way down to central Wisconsin for tomorrow morning. We start taking into midday tomorrow. This is still ongoing. And then you get another push as a low tries to form here in lower Michigan. And this is getting into tomorrow evening, still ongoing. And then you could get one last hurrah with a burst of snow Monday morning. Lot. Man, there's a lot going on. Saturday morning, right now, we got the wintry mess ongoing across the northeast. It might let up in intensity, and then it'll pick right back up again. The pink freezing rain, blue is snow. And this will eventually extend all the way into Maine as we get more so into tomorrow, where you guys will get a heavy wintry mix tomorrow into tomorrow evening. And then eventually all of it will switch to rain Monday night into Tuesday morning. So updated amounts here. They've increased it. This is what it looks like as far as the Duluth area, west, north, east, south. Duluth, additional 3 to 8 inches of snow's forecast. And then we look at the ice forecast in this area. Nothing too bad left over with this event up here. And then we look at northern sections of Wisconsin. More snow the further north you get, but this area is going to get hammered by ice, especially later tonight. There's a section right here in the purple where you could get over 3/4 of an inch of ice. 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch of ice in this darker red, this lighter shade of red, 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch. Guys, anything over a 1/4 inch can start causing issues. But over a 1/2 inch starts bringing down trees, power lines, things like that. So take this. I don't know how much is added up already, but the meat of the second round will be worse than the first. They bumped up some snow totals up here in the UP of Michigan, where maybe a little bit more cold air might save some people from these ridiculous ice totals that were originally predicted. But Marquette, 7 to 14 inches of wet, heavy snow. But this is what it looks like up here. Freezing rain still looks bad, but there's a sharp cutoff between a lot of freezing rain, 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch to nothing. Sharp cutoff. So who is going to get the worst? It just depends on if you're outside and you're thinking originally you're going to get a lot of freezing rain, but you're just here a lot of sleet, then you might be getting saved, but your buddy 25 miles to your south could be getting warm nosed and getting a ton of freezing rain. It's just a very sharp gradient cutoff up here in the atmosphere, which obviously, you know, translates to the surface. But northern lower Michigan, you know, Gaylord going for a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch of freezing rain, where the precipitation won't let up in this area more than likely over the next 48 hours. So a lot of freezing rain down here. And then we take it into the interior northeast. Several more inches of wet snow will fall up here in these regions. This is falling right now also. And then we look at the ice. Nasty ice totals continue for these regions. If you live in the red, that's where over a 1/4 inch of freezing rain could fall. And then we take it into southern New England, the Berkshires, the Worcester Hills. You guys could get notable ice accumulations. Fitchburg, you know, 1/10 to a 1/4 of an inch of freezing rain is forecast. A little bit of snow in this area too, but not expecting much. And then New Hampshire, Vermont. No, this is New Hampshire. New Hampshire and Maine, I'm running out of gas, guys. Several inches of snow, especially Littleton, Freiburg, Plymouth. You get over a half a foot of snow. A lot of freezing rain expected in this area. New Hampshire, western areas of Maine, over a 1/2 inch of freezing rain. Concord, 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, Plymouth, same thing, just a lot of nasty freezing rain. And then the rest of Maine, just a couple inches of wet snow, and you certainly can get notable ice totals up here in this region too. So last thing we'll talk about is next week's severe weather threat. Listen, we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this just because there's so much out ahead of us that we need to deal with over the next 72 hours, but there's a slight risk, little baby slight risk here in areas of the Midwest and Plains for next Tuesday. This is a level 2 out of 5 risk of severe weather, 15% risk of any severe weather for next Tuesday. Now, for next Wednesday, this looks like a big day. Already at day 5, they're this confident. For next Wednesday, we have an enhanced risk. That's what it is in the orange at day 5. 30% risk of severe weather within 25 miles in any given location for some of the same areas it's going to deal with it tomorrow. I mean, this area has been hit hard. St. Louis, Indianapolis, Louisville, Evansville, Cincinnati, down to Nashville, Memphis, Little Rock, Southeast Missouri. 30% risk of severe weather within 25 miles in any given location. And then you got the slight risk area too, Chicago, Detroit, Columbus. I mean, it seems like we're just in repeat down the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Large area runs a risk of severe weather. And what's causing this is this low that you're going to see right here. Same thing. Anytime you got an injecting low across this region, or this region, we're going to spell trouble this time of the year. And that's exactly what we get. You see that L in the middle of the screen? Here it comes. It's getting into next Tuesday evening. Look at those storms erupting across the middle of the country. And then we get into next Wednesday. Look at all those storms right into here. We're not even close to short-range model guidance yet. We still got to figure out what's right in front of us, right? And we could have more severe weather getting into late next week. The ingredients are there. Okay? This is next Tuesday morning. Watch how those dew points in the 60s surge dramatically to the north. And we're starting to get into Wednesday afternoon. Listen, this is deep moisture getting all the way up into Chicago, southern lower Michigan. Look at this huge moist sector. Not good. I really think next Wednesday could be a big day, and you got plenty of flow going right over all that moist air, guys. Look how much flow that is in the upper levels of the atmosphere. Over 100 knots. So that's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. Stay tuned. There's a lot going on over the next several days. God bless.